Well, it's a final in Marseille. The USA drops their opener to hometown France, opening game of the Olympics. We'll go over that. Argentina lost to Morocco. We'll have something to say about that. And we've got a drone controversy, also part of the Olympics. And of course, we're going to talk New York City FC on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene el tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer!
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right. France 3, USA 0. I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Roberto Abramowitz, New York City FC. We are prominently always discussing the football club out of the five boroughs. Future home just Queens future. But there's this Olympic stuff that we've got to kick off with. So we'll get to New York City a little bit later on as they prepare for the Leagues Cup and some other things as well. Roberto, great to see you. What is your
likewise?
USA loses to France 3-0. What's your initial impression of the game?
They stayed with them pretty well. They created a lot of opportunities. It was pretty much an even game until the first goal that Lacazette scored in the 61st minute. Then the U.S., I thought, reacted really, really well. They had a couple of really strong chances. The best one was probably Tolkien, who with a header beat their goalie, but hit the post flush on. And then a couple of minutes later, Olise in the 69th minute made it 2-0, and then it became mission impossible. They added a third with another header, and now you just have to go out and win the other two games in the group, which will be a little bit easier than playing host France on the opening day.
Yeah. But was interesting. So Lacazette, one of the overage players for France, and he's overage. He's 33 years old. And what a pedigree. So he scores this goal from distance. Look, let's put it out there. Patrick Schulte should have made the save.
Okay. I thought that he dove late. I thought that he didn't pick up the ball until it was too late, and then by the time he did, it was just for show at that point. But he missed where that was coming from, and he picked up the ball way too late.
Well, you had Tim Howard, a goalkeeper, on the broadcast, so he described it. You know, he didn't have the explosion necessary to get to that side, and some of that's footwork, some of that's maybe seeing it late, like you said. The issue is by not saving that, and it was really the first difficult thing maybe he had to do in the match. It's such a setback. But then, like less than a minute later, Brendan Aronson does this pretty unbalanced header with enough force that the keeper really had to make a good save.
Yes.
Restus is the keeper's name. And then, like you said, then there's the post struck by Tolkien.
Right.
And it was really, and this is all less than a minute, after this all happened. Paredes with that great delivery on the Tolkien.
Absolutely.
And Tolkien had it's too bad. He had a wide open net to shoot for, and he hit the post. So initially they thought it was a save. It was not. So you described it well. Hey, look, here, I wrote a few things down. First, my pregame thoughts: Ricardo Pepi, Malik Tillman, Johnny Cordasso. You could say Joe Scally, Gio Reyna, Flo Balogun, but these are all guys eligible for the Olympics who are not permitted to attend because of their clubs. It's not an international FIFA window, so you don't have to release your players. And those clubs said no, or maybe the players said no. You don't usually get a clear reading of that.
I want to make a point that you just said. So there's two players that I want to talk about just slightly. One of them, Gio Reyna, he's basically out at Dortmund. And now he's got to go and find a team. So I don't know why they didn't release him, but they didn't. And then Ricardo Pepi today had a hat trick for PSV Eindhoven, and they beat FC Eindhoven 3-2. But Pepe with a hat trick, including a penalty kick, and I think it was in the 91st minute.
And this game would have been a lot better for him than playing against the 2 team for PSV. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't feel bad about the way that they played, the way the U.S. played. I don't feel bad at all. I mean, obviously they're going against one of the tournament favorites. I thought that they showed well for the first 70 minutes. Once they went down in the 69th 2-0, then at that point it becomes a different game. But they were lively. I really like their set pieces. I mean, and the crosses, especially on set pieces, every one of them seemed to be delivered right on the money between Paredes first and then McGlynn when he came in the game. He did the same thing. He had one shot on goal from a free kick from the left side that just went on the wrong side of the post. If somebody could have crashed in there, that would have been something. But they got there a little bit late and the ball wound up going just on the wrong side of the post. Look, if they play that way for the other 2 games, I think that they're going to be okay and they're going to get out of the group. They got to play against New Zealand, who beat Guinea by the score of 3-0, rather 2-1 today, 2-1. So
and then Guinea. So that's their next 2 opponents. So you would hope that they could have successful results there. It's just there's some naivete. What's the word? Naivete. There's some naivete, I think, here.
Hey, you're the English announcer. I only do Spanish.
I know, and I pride myself on language. So there you go. The both goals also. There was no pressure on the ball. These were shots from outside the area, and against these like Olise, he's pretty good. He's going from Crystal Palace to Bayern Munich. I mean, you got to step up on a guy who's on his favored foot, and Schulte had no chance with that one. So now you're down 2. Now you're down 2, and it's pretty much game over. But I wrote this down too, Roberto, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I remember David Lee in our chat with him, the sporting director for New York City FC, and I really agreed with him. He was comparing the team last year against Cincinnati to this year. And he said last year it was men versus boys. This year it was a contest. Right. I really got that impression in this game. There were times that the physical capabilities of the French, look, they're good players too, but it just felt like, just felt like the senior team against the junior team a little bit. It had that we just couldn't keep up physically with them. And then the third goal is just a free header, but somebody got barreled over in the area. I just thought that they were physically imposing, and I thought that made its mark in the game as well.
I mean, you look at where all these players play, and it's either between France, England, and Germany, and Spain. You're talking about players, all of them being in one of the top 3 or 4 leagues in the world. And the U.S. players, the U.S. has some players in some of those leagues as well, but maybe not the exact same pedigree. What did there was it Tom Bogert today? Or somebody put it out that according to Transfer Market, France had like 15 players over a certain level and the U.S. only had 1. I mean, it's men versus boys as far as that was concerned. And I still think that this team will grow, and I think that they should be able to get the wins in the next 2 games, and then we'll see where they go from there.
Standing by is a Har Journalist, our friend from out in British Columbia, and we're going to get to her in a moment because she's going to help us break down another Olympic story. It was actually the first Olympic story, and it was one that was rather detrimental to the Canadian women's national team. But let's stick with one more game here, Roberto. And this was so you have the drone incident, which we're going to get to, and then you have a 2-hour delay in a game because the Moroccan fans objected to a game-tying goal scored by Argentina, which they felt was past. There was already 15 minutes of stoppage time. So this game-tying goal by Medina was scored in the 16th minute of second-half stoppage time. And they went crazy. They threw things on the field. They ran onto the field. And for the safety of the players, the referee got the players back in the locker room. The game was delayed 2 hours. The stadium was emptied. So the players had to come back. But the story is incredible. The players had to come back out to an empty stadium. And for Argentina, they thought it was 2-2 Well, when they come back out, there's a video review saying there was offside.
Which it was.
Thiago Almada, yeah, there's no argument. Thiago Almada actually started this play that led to the tying goal. And now it's 2-1. They've got 3 more minutes to play. So Morocco beats Argentina 2-1 in what was...
And outplayed them as well, by the way. I mean, based on the stats, I didn't watch the game, but based
I
on
didn't see
stats,
the game either. I didn't see
they outplayed them. When you look at the stats in this one, 14 it's Argentina outplayed Morocco. I apologize, I had them backwards. 14 shots to 7 for Argentina. Big chances were the same. As far as fouls, wow, a lot of fouls. 19 by Argentina, 15 by Morocco, 4 offsides for Argentina, including the one that took away their goal, and 3-3 on corner kicks. So
yep.
Argentina, by the way, they lost to Saudi Arabia in the World Cup and turned out okay.
Yeah, so they have Iraq and Ukraine, all U23 teams. And Roberto, that's a story too. Just why it's U23s versus when you see on the women's side, they put their full teams in. And this dates way back. I don't want to get into the story right now, but it's something that became the natural way of going about it for the Olympics. And then they also say you can only have 18 players on your roster, which is
ridiculous that the U.S. only has, U.S. and France, it's only 6 players on the bench.
And of the 18 players for the U.S., 15 have been capped at one time or another by the senior team. But it's obviously not its best team. But you could say the same for the other countries that
everybody same rules.
At least. Yeah, same rules. All right. So when I woke up this morning, Roberto, this is I opened up my computer and eventually I go on Twitter, and this is the first tweet I saw from Har Journalist here. And Jimmy, if you could throw that tweet up. So statement for the Canadian Olympic Committee. So I'm thinking statement. What's the problem here? And the wording here is incredible, and we're going to have Har on here in a moment. A non-accredited member of the Canada soccer support team detained by French authorities, and it has to do with a drone that was hovering above the New Zealand practice session. Now, Canada plays New Zealand tomorrow on Thursday, so that's going to be an interesting match. Even more so now. And Bev Priestman, the head coach for the Canadian women's national team, has pulled herself out of the game. She's taken responsibility for this. But let's bring Har in. This is Har Journalist. Is Har? How do you pronounce your last name?
Johal.
Johal?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think I've ever called you that or said. So do you sign your checks Har Journalist or Har Johal?
I sign whatever you want, as long as I get paid.
Okay.
Good for you. Good to see you again. It's been many years.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Well,
but the circumstances are a little bit crazy. Who expects this at the Olympics, where you've got drones and spying and what is going on over there? And a couple of people were sent home, and somebody else fell on their sword.
Let's just, Har, I just want to let people know that you're in British Columbia. You've been covering the Vancouver Whitecaps, which is where I first met you when we came out with New York City FC. Yeah. And then I know you are also very thoroughly covering the Canadian women's national team and have done that for years. So Roberto teed you up. So what the heck happened?
Yeah, I guess someone thought it would be an idea to have a drone and go over and hover it around the New Zealand training session. So apparently what we learned is it didn't happen just once. There's 2 incidents. And so the French authorities detained the individual, searched the hotel room, seized all the electronic equipment. And so...
Oh my! When you say detained, can you define that? What does that mean? Were they put in a jail cell, or
yes, slap the cuffs on, take them away? Because
oh my word!
In France, because it's a security hazard, there's a whole bunch of protocols in place for the Olympics. So even flying an unmanned aircraft, as they said, and being the pilot, it gets you in a lot of trouble. So it was during the detainment that they learned that it happened twice, and the individual Joe Lombardi, I guess he told Jasmine Mander, the assistant coach. And I guess this was after the first incident. So she obviously was aware of the first incident. Why they thought, okay, we'll do it again, I don't know.
Well, what do you know what the first incident was? Whose practice did they hover over then?
New Zealand. It was both times. It was New Zealand.
So the first thing you ask is Canada's 8 in the world. New Zealand is, I don't know, 28th or there's a pretty big difference in level, I think, in watching the two teams recently. Well, most recently, in the World Cup. But you just have to wonder about the necessity of this, number one, and the absolute gall. Now, so Joe Lombardi, let's talk about Joe Lombardi, an unaccredited analyst with Canada Soccer. What the heck does that mean? Because he worked for John Herdman on the men's side as an analyst, and now he's an analyst on the women's side. He's been in the federation for years. What is this unaccredited analysis stuff?
Yeah, so it's some sneaky word play, as we found out today. The COC had a presser about a few hours ago, and so I guess the teams at the Olympics, the staff and the players, and this is for all teams, for all countries, you're only given a certain amount of accreditation, and so each team will have a certain amount or allotment. So I guess he didn't make the cut in terms of the women's national team for getting his credential, but he's very much part of the team. He was on the staff at the Women's World Cup a year ago. So to say he's not part of the team, that's not exactly true. And so non-accredited, it just means he didn't have his pass, or he didn't have one. So yeah, it's a big mess, and Canada's going to play New Zealand on Thursday, as you mentioned, and Bev Pressman has excused herself. She won't be coaching. Andy Spence, the assistant coach, will be on the touchline. And so Bev, I guess, will coach the next two group stage games. Mander and Lombardi have been sent back to Canada. Now, there was a suspended sentence of 8 months imprisonment handed down to Lombardi by the French prosecutors. We're not sure what the conditions are of this, but I imagine it's just to go home and don't come back.
So
I would think so. And by the way, Glenn was talking about the difference between Canada and New Zealand. Let's remind everybody, Canada's a defending Olympic champion.
Yeah, they've never lost.
They're the gold medal team from last time.
They're 9-2 against them.
9-2.
Yeah, and to resort to this is just mind-boggling.
This is so we've got Har Journalist here, who is covering the Canadian women's national team, and this story which broke yesterday. And we find that the New Zealand national soccer team was spied on not once, but twice by Joe Lombardi apparently with the blessing of Jasmine Mander, an assistant coach, and then were caught by the authorities. And I understand the French authorities and you talked about it a little bit. The French authorities are more looking for like tourists to fly. They don't want tourists doing it. There might not have been an expectation that the teams are going to spy on each other, but they have the means to find these people quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. You mean security surveillance? It's super tight. They're looking for actual major threats of terrorism or anyone disrupting the game. So they've caught some spy scandal stories with the women's national team. So, it's quite a mess. We saw that Bev and Canada Soccer have profusely apologized, as is the CEO.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, come on. So I want to ask your opinion, Har.
Yeah.
And, if you're hesitant to answer this, then I understand.
I won't be.
What level of faith do you have that Bev Priestman knew nothing about this?
0.
That's what I would figure too.
Yeah.
So you talk about Andy Spence. I think
what's going on with your team.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
As the head coach of the national team, you need to know what's going on with your team. And if you don't know what's going on and that's happening, that says a lot more about you as a head coach, that takes place.
What is the reaction of the Canadian Federation throughout all of this? And is there a possibility that Bev might be in trouble either before the second game or when the team eventually makes it back to Canada?
Yes, so the president and general secretary CEO have released a statement. They're going to be doing a thorough review of everything and seeing what transpired. So Kevin and Peter are not going to be making any media statements or talking to the press. So they're reviewing everything, and they'll let us know, I'm sure, in due time, the findings of this. But as the COC said earlier today, they believe Bev, they believe Kevin Blue, that they had no knowledge. And so they're leaving it up to kind of Canada Soccer to kind of deal with the mess. And so that's where we're at now. New Zealand has requested, I believe, to FIFA that Canada be awarded no points. So we'll see if that happens. So far, there's no news. And also, FIFA is investigating Pressman, Mander, and Lombardi.
What's the reaction in Canada right now, either what you've seen on social media or through news media, responsible journalists as well, other people, what they're saying about this? I mean, it's got to be, I would imagine, just general embarrassment by all of this.
Yeah, it's the usual, why would you even think you could get away with this or try this? It's Canada Soccer, so 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. So no one's really surprised that, Canada Soccer is involved in some sort of scandal, but just this type of thing with the drone, it's ridiculous to even think that this is something you could get away with. It's top story. It's all over the press here. It's a huge international story as well.
Har, do you remember there's an association here perhaps with John Herdman? Like we talked about Joe Lombardi working for Herdman. In 2021, I think it was a World Cup qualifier, the Canada men's team was accused of spying with a drone, but it somewhere along the way, there wasn't enough proof and it got dropped. I
believe that might have been in Toronto, and I believe John Herdman, there was a clip going around where he says a lot of Canadians have drones. So maybe not the first incident where Canada has been mixed up with
a big smile. I saw that clip with a nice big wry smile. This is what this is, this is my favorite part of the Canadian Olympic Committee's response. And Joe Lombardi sent home, Jasmine Manders sent home, Bev Priestman, they have agreed to agree with her to remove herself from the first game. And then number 4, Canada soccer staff will undergo mandatory ethics training.
Yeah, that's a good one. Don't do it again.
Well, that's something to that seems to make
sense. It didn't take the first time, it seems.
Oh my goodness.
Here's don't operate it.
I know Roberto asked you about Bev Priestman. I don't know Bev. I've just observed her. I know people that know her, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people are going to be talked to, and we're going to find out whether Bev knew or not. I'm just saying this: if she did know, she's got to be sent home with them, and good old Andy Spence has to just take the team the rest of the way. There's no way that she can stay in France and coach her team through the Olympics if she had any knowledge of this, and whether that gets discovered or not remains to be seen. But I'd be interested to know what Joseph Lombardi and Jasmine Mander, tell us a little bit about her. I know you probably know her pretty well. She's a British Columbia girl.
She's based out here. She's been with the team since 2021, I believe. She just recently got promoted fully to the assistant coach role. And an interesting twist, and I don't know if you guys know this, her brother is a physiotherapist with the New Zealand women's football team.
No way. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There's so many twists in this story, Har. So here's what you have to do for us, okay? And I'm going to ask you one more thing before you leave about the Vancouver Whitecaps. If something comes up, you got to let us know. We'll throw you back on at a moment's notice, or I'll give you credit on a tweet or something. But we're joking a little bit about it, but it's crazy. It's ridiculous. There's so much gall, and I'm offended as a coach that people will do this, because it's happened to me. Opponents have done similar things to me, and I don't understand it. I don't understand it from the standpoint of ethics. So I'm glad they're having the mandatory ethics training. But if they're doing it now as adults, I don't think that's going to help.
You guys were just talking about the U.S. team. I know they're going to play New Zealand, the men's team. And there's a player out here in Vancouver, Jay Herdman, who's with the New Zealand men's team. And played about 77 minutes today. So he's someone to keep an eye on. He's
All right.
with the Whitecaps FC2 team. So he's a young up-and-coming player and one of the few MLS players that's at this tournament. So keep an eye on Jay Herdman out there.
We will. And I would just, the final thing I want to say about Vancouver is that Vancouver should be, really owes New Jersey quite a bit. I'm sure you're aware of that. Brian White, the guy that's pouring in goals for you, as a Jersey boy, played at PDA right down the road from here. So I just want to make sure that Jersey gets the proper credit out there in the Pacific Northwest for what they've brought your way.
I got a question, because I have a question about the Whitecaps as well, because I've always been interested in attendance and how things are. And for a while, attendance was growing and growing with the Whitecaps, and then they went through a dry period. And then all of a sudden, instead of getting a steady, 21 to 23,000 people in your gorgeous stadium, which is BC Place, all of a sudden it was like dropping to 14 to 13. And then all of a sudden this year, aside from the Messi game, which I know they sold out and then he didn't show up, which was a mess, but happens. There's been a lot of other crowds that have been very, very strong, including, I believe, either one or two over 30,000. What's going on?
Yeah, the fans have come back. The crowds have been over 22,000. They just had two games last week in Vancouver, and they were great crowds as well. So the fans have come back. The team's playing really high, attractive, offensive football, and they're scoring goals, and they're making it exciting. There's a lot of games on the weekend too. We found games on Wednesday night, maybe not the best time, and some games early at 4:30 as local time has really helped as well. So it's a great to see the fans coming back in droves, and we'll see what happens on Saturday because they're playing Wrexham at BC Place. So we'll see who's going to turn up and what kind of game that will be. So, the fans have come back. The Caps are doing tremendous this year. And as you mentioned, Jersey boy Brian White's leading the way with 13 goals.
That's
He's
right.
been great.
He has been great.
I love him and Ryan Gauld as well. I love watching those guys play. They're fun.
And your coach, Vanny is he's one of a kind. One of a kind. There's a little question of that. Har Journalist is our friend that has been covering Canadian women's national team, also the Vancouver Whitecaps. And follow her at Har Journalist. She's a good follow. And especially if you're intrigued as much as we are about this drone spy story, because there's a Roberto, I know you saw the tweet I put out about Hope Solo that Netflix, the Untold series by Netflix is going to include a piece with Hope Solo. They're also doing a piece about the Michigan assistant who, remember, he was on the other sideline. He was standing next to the other team with a pad and was taking notes and was stealing signs from this is Michigan football now. So there's that story's coming out too. So I forget the guy's name, but that's what really kind of resonated when I saw this morning. It's like, oh my God.
Connor Stallions.
What's his name?
Connor Stallions. We've heard about him. We've heard Bevacek mentioned as well. So a lot of jokes.
Bevacek?
Bevacek, Belichick, a little mix.
Yes. Bevacek. Oh, that's we might have to use that one. That might be the one, Jimmy. That might be the title of the podcast today. We'll see. I have to check with our headline writer Roberto. But Har, thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of this, and enjoy the rest of the MLS season.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Great to see you.
It's really our pleasure. It's been too long. Oh, she's great. Great information that she provides and great coverage of pretty much everything Canada. Definitely give her a follow at Har_Journalist. So give her a follow on Twitter.
_journalist. Sorry, but you'd find her anyway. But at Har, thank you, Roberto. But detained with handcuffs.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely, because
I understand. No, I understand. Yeah, I understand why, because of the high security. I understand that, but it's just it's a couple of soccer coaches, and I'm just saying
they may not but they may
not
know that at the moment.
You don't have to explain. I think
I'm just trying to say is
it's eye-opening.
It is eye-opening, and people have used drones for terrorist applications. You never know if a drone has a camera in it or has a gun. So
Ask the people of Ukraine, who live in that fear every day.
Exactly.
They bring drones overhead, and those are weapons.
Yeah, exactly. So France had, the French authorities had every right to be able to detain them and put them in handcuffs. Then they can find out, what they were doing, and as it turned out, it was cheating more than anything else. And wow, what a way to start! And I don't even know if that's the top story of soccer in the day. And that's an incredible story because what happened with Argentina and Morocco?
Yeah, that's
crazy.
Or maybe the MLS All-Star Game is the top story of the day. Notice that was
no.
Notice that was not anywhere in my rundown. I always send Roberto what I believe we should cover.
Yes,
we'll make a brief mention because in MLS Next, Drew Baera scored the game-tying goal for the East to make it 2-2. And then I think Kevin Sullivan, Philadelphia, but Drew Baera, the homegrown for New York City, who was just on the most recent road trip as a reserve in the event something happened with the very limited fullbacks that were available to New York City on that particular trip. So congratulations to Baera scoring the goal in the MLS Next All-Star Fiesta, which was last night. Hey, one other Olympics thing that I wanted to point out and get your opinion on, Roberto, that I did not put in the rundown, so this will be a surprise.
Oh, good.
So FIFA, and I like this, although it's still really, really nebulous, but I like it. The captain only speaking to the referee, that measure is being implemented in these games.
Yes.
At the Olympics for the men's. So I have so here's here. Only the captain can approach the referee. This is from IFAB. Guidelines for competition. So as we open it up, to prevent players mobbing or surrounding the referee, only one player from each team, usually the captain, and they're saying that because if the goalkeeper's the captain, you have to name somebody before the game, one of the outfield players that's a little closer to the referee. But only one player allowed to approach the referee, and when doing so, they must always interact in a respectful manner.
Yes, and I think it's great because, all these surrounding the referee and trying to intimidate them and, use their bodies to push them and things like that. And, that's got to stop. So I'm 100% for this. Why the hell did it take until 2024 to do this?
I've been talking about it since probably 1994. Seriously, well before I was on the air talking about things, I was just coaching. And I couldn't believe watching games and it's really referee abuse. That's about the best way. The only thing you could say is when a referee is surrounded and people are within inches of his or her face. There's it's really it's disturbing. The reason I say it's nebulous, because a player that might get hurt on a particular play or involved in it can also speak respectfully to the referee at that moment. So the referee now has to distinguish, what is respectful. I mean, how many, so it's still, this is the part to me where just make it should be just so clear cut. Captain only. You designate that person before the start of the game. If anybody comes close to you or even looks you in the eye, bang him with a yellow, and there's no more surrounding the referee. I just don't understand why he doesn't go to that route.
I don't mind the player that was fouled, especially if it was a heavy foul.
Well, it says involved in the incident.
Exactly.
So
So that means that means the player who committed the foul and the player that received the foul. So you can have at most 3 players, 4 with the other captains. So you can have most 4 players.
Well, here's the exact wording. The referee will, where appropriate, explain important decisions to the captain and or the players involved in the incident. So yeah, definitely. And I think a referee should have that kind of transparency and communication.
Of course.
But it's still kind of nebulous.
The best referees are able to communicate, and because you don't only have to communicate with cards. So you can calm situations down by properly talking to somebody. And it's a good rule. I like it.
All right, let's go for this is NYCFC Views. So
it is.
It is. And
okay.
But with us being live and the U.S. game just completed, fun to kind of share our thoughts about that, as well as continuing with the stories of the day in the Olympics on the soccer side, which are plentiful. But for New York City FC, well, they go into Leagues Cup this break and the All-Star break, I guess you could say, with the All-Star game tonight, without a win in their last 4 games, Roberto. Now, 3 of them were draws. All 4 of them were on the road. But I think, and I feel certain to say that the Nick Cushing and the rest of the team are a little disappointed that they couldn't get more than 3 points out of those 4 road games, because you could say they could have won 3 of the 4. But you could say that about a lot of games, I recognize. But
could have won all 4. They could have won all 4 for sure.
I don't count the Chicago game. Neither team should have won that game, but they should have both gone. We should have been able to fly back early, like right at halftime, just get on the plane and go home.
Oh, and miss the thunderstorm?
Yeah, but that game doesn't count. That was a terrible soccer game. Both teams were awful, and I'm not counting that one as one you could win.
But I count it because the New York City should have been favored in that game. They have the better team, and they should have won it. That's why I think that you can count it. But it's weird how this road trip worked out, because I thought that probably the best game they played was in Austin, and they wound up losing.
Yeah.
That's the second best game that they played was against Orlando, and they got a tie, and they maybe could have gotten a win. At the same time, they could have lost that game as well.
Yeah.
But I thought that they finished the road trip in a very strong way. For them to come back 5 minutes after allowing a goal, and Santi getting the turnover, getting the ball to Martinez, immediately to Wolf, and he finished it really, really nicely, and that got the tie. So I thought that was strong. The Atlanta game, they never should have been down 2-0. I mean, that just should. I mean, you can't go down to that team in that situation. I don't care if you're playing in Atlanta. They haven't lost to Atlanta since 2019. You can't go there and
that's got nothing to do with that game. But that's got nothing to do with that game.
No, but I'm just saying that they've played them well, no matter who was on the field. This time they had basically, you would have to consider almost a reserve team. 3 of their best players are no longer on the team. Giacomakis is gone. Thiago Almada is gone. Caleb Wiley is gone. They had a defenseman who's a starter who's suspended. I mean, come on. That's a game you've got to be able to win. And so you look at it from 2 perspectives. One, they had a horrific first half. And then credit to them, they came back in the second half and were able to get 2 goals at a point. And the first time that they've ever come back from a 2-0 or more deficit at halftime and gotten points. First time in 17 other occasions that's happened. So good for them as far as that's concerned. But and overall, they wound up with 3 points on the road trip. They tied their last 3 games.
Yeah.
However you want to look at it.
No, 5th place in the conference. I mean, they're really with 9 games to play. I can't believe it's just 9 games left.
Yeah, I know,
season.
right?
They're in very good position now, but the schedule is definitely challenging. I'll pull it up in a minute, but I read it at the end of our broadcast at Orlando, and I just went through it, and Matty Lawrence looked at me and go like, "That's not an easy schedule, man." And it's all Eastern Conference teams, so you're just going head to head with everybody from your conference, and I'm sure there'll be a little up and down going there because there's so few points from the bottom teams in the East to the playoff line. And New York City has some pretty good separation. So as long as they can maintain.
Well, do we want to go through the games?
Yeah, we could.
Now that we've teased it?
Yeah, I said.
Let's see how we go here.
I said I was going to look up the schedule. You did.
I have it on me.
No, sometimes you don't listen to me. Sometimes you don't listen.
More than sometimes, not just sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got it right here. So the next game within MLS and not Leagues Cup is August 24th at Citi Field against Chicago. Then they go on a 2-game road trip to Columbus and DC. Then they have games at home Wednesday, Saturday, the 18th and the 21st against Philadelphia, and then Miami. The Saturday game against Miami, 2:00 game, and that is the full stadium is being sold for that at Yankee Stadium. So we're expecting somewhere in the vicinity of 48,000 people. We expect Messi, to be fine by then, but you never know. Then they play against the Red Bulls September 28th, which is a Saturday. 2 more games at home, October 2nd, October 5th against Cincinnati and Nashville. And those right now are to be determined, but as they stand, they're scheduled at Red Bull Arena.
All right,
And
keep going.
we'll have to see if they can get switched to Yankee
All right,
Stadium or
all
Citi
right.
Field.
Don't
And
let
then
people are going to forget who
Montreal.
we're playing. Just go through the games, man.
And then Montreal, they're paying attention. They're listening.
No, Stade Saputo. That's a tough schedule because first of all, Cincinnati will regain their mojo by then. Red Bull New York, look, they're having a pretty good season, you'd have to say, and ahead of New York City in the standings. Nashville, they'll have their stuff together with their new coach BJ Callahan by then. In Montreal, that's decision day. Montreal might be fighting for a playoff berth. Miami, obvious. Philadelphia, I believe the Philadelphia Union have figured it out. Again, DC United on the road, never easy. Columbus on the road, there you go. I mean, that's whew. But that's what
a tough
it should
schedule.
be. It's fun.
That's what it should be. Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
What it should be, and it's fun. All right, Roberto, tell us about Querétaro, because you are the Liga MX expert on this particular podcast. I watch games, but I don't have the insight that you do. And are they still winless in the league?
Yes, they are. I haven't done my deep dive on them yet, and I've only watched one of the games that they've played this year, and that was against America, and they went down early 2-0, came back at the end of the first half, got it down to 2-1, and then allowed a third goal. That was a game that Alex Sendejas got hurt in, and he had played a magnificent game for America at that point. But yeah, they made a lot of changes during the offseason, and none of them seem to have worked out. They're 0-4 so far.
All right.
They haven't really. I mean, they played Monterrey in Monterrey and lost 2-1. Monterrey is one of the better teams in the league. So that was in their last game. That game was only on streaming VIX Premium, so couldn't even watch a replay of it. Which
no
is
VIX.
a shame.
When I see VIX, disappointing. But the VIX Vapo Rub, I will purchase, but I will not purchase a VIX.
Yeah, that's with a
soccer game.
CKS. This is with an X. So
I know.
an
It's a
X
play
on
on
VIX.
words. It's a play on words.
Yes, I know.
Why
I know.
can't
But
you-
anyway, Querétaro's not good. They're last in the league. They're last in the league, 0 points. Nobody in Liga MX has 0 points so far. But also, we got to see what kind of team that Nick's going to put out, because you sort of get the feeling that he's, the Luis Barrazas of the world and some other players are going to get a chance to play.
You would think Barraza gets his chance here. I mean, it's almost
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would think. I
don't
have
want
no inside knowledge. This is just
no, we
guess.
have nothing. But you would think you'd have to give him these games. Since the guy's been hanging in there throughout the season, and obviously Matt Freese is the proper choice as the number one keeper. He's probably or could be the number one keeper in the league, depending on how you look at it. So that's that game is Sunday. We won't have a chance to talk to Nick Cushing until Saturday. So just look out for social media posts regarding, his thoughts leading into that game. And of course, it's the summer of soccer. So you got Man City coming to town, and Pep will be up at the facility on Friday. So that's pretty cool. So all this is happening all on the same weekend. So summer of soccer.
It's going to be fun. Am I going to see you at the? Am I going to see you at the Man City game?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be at a number of things in spirit. Let's just put it that way. What about this? You're a season ticket also. You've probably been the first to receive something like this. So when we spoke to Brad Sims a few weeks back, he said, "Oh, you asked him about something," and he started describing. He goes, "Hey, we haven't actually put that out yet." So I think that's what this was this week. The pitch side lounges. Can you explain what that is?
There's going to be like basically a bar that's going to be either in the corners or like below the scoreboards, where it seemed, based on what the outfield put out back in May, and they shared it again yesterday, like all the photos of the interior of the stadium. So there's basically, the Cowboys have that in their stadium in AT&T, where there's a bar and food and all that, and it's literally on the field, and you're going to be able to sit down and watch the game from the field.
There's a in the Canadian.
That's not going to be my tickets. I'm telling you that right now. I know that.
in the Canadian Premier League, I wanted to see if I can find it before we go off the air. One of the stadiums in the CPL, the opposite sideline from the bench, the entire sideline is a bar. Like the entire sideline, obviously a few feet back, so that they can make the long throw. But I think, how fun is that? I'm going to see if I can find it before.
Well, what about in San Jose? Now it's not on the sideline, but on the end line. They have the bar that goes all the way behind the end line, which is at the second level where the scoreboard is as well, and that's pretty damn cool.
No, that's very cool. Let's see if. Let's see. I Googled sideline. You always have to Google it right, or you don't get an answer.
Yes.
Sideline bar in CPL. So I keep getting these bars that are close to me: Newark, Fairfield, Lindenhurst. So there must be a bar called Sideline Bar. All right, let me go.
There might be.
I'm going to go Canadian Premier League. Bear with me because this is very important information.
Stadium sideline bar you can put. Maybe that helps.
Yeah.
Or do what I do and stop using Google and go to DuckDuckGo, so they don't track everything you do.
All right. Well, I can't do it anymore because we've got to keep pushing along here. Hey, before we mentioned BJ Callahan taking over Nashville. He coached his first game recently and lost to Philadelphia and his old boss Jim Curtin 3-0. Boy, a spanking so he goes back to Subaru Park, his old stomping grounds. BJ's a Philly guy, and but Gazdag did him in.
Daniel Gazdag with a hat trick.
And Andre, hey, we talk about Philadelphia. All of a sudden, they're getting their mojo back. Well, guess why? Andre Blake is back in goal.
That helps.
So that was huge.
Covered. But I mean, some of the you can't. I mean, the goalkeeping for Philadelphia without him was horrible. Having said that, the defense in front of him was even worse. Jacob Glesnes had taken several steps back this year as a defender, and it really hurt Philadelphia. It wasn't only the fact that they were losing; it was how they were losing, and they lost so many games at the end. Either before stoppage time or in stoppage time. It was almost like if it was a disease of some sort. They were in real trouble, but. There are 9 teams that qualify for the playoffs, so they're not that far out.
And back to Callahan, he had made an interesting hire today, and not surprising, a guy named John Bello as his first assistant. Now, probably very few people are going to know this guy's name. I happen to know him because he's an analyst. I've had him on my show on Sirius XM-FC. But when I was in Qatar to watch the U.S.-Iran game, BJ invited me up. And he's an assistant with Berhalter at the time, but and very much involved in the analytics and the specific times of the game where they identify stuff. It's really fascinating. But he had this row of 6 or 7 people, all analysts, and one of them was this guy, John Bello, who is now his assistant coach, which I thought was pretty cool. And you mentioned Gregerson. Remember when New York City went to Atlanta, they were missing a lot of players, including a center back, Gregerson. Yeah. He scored his first 2 goals with the club. I mean, this is center back now. He scored a brace when Atlanta beat Columbus in the last game before the break, 2-1.
How about that? How about that for a crazy result?
His first 2 goals.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Lewis has 2 goals and 3 assists in his last 4 matches for Colorado. So whenever we can mention J. Lou on the program, I always like Jonathan Lewis.
It was one of my favorite interviews when he came out when he went at the draft. Remember, we had such a blast with him at the draft because he was such a breath of fresh air and just exuding confidence, and obviously very, very happy to be drafted by New York City. And you were just taken aback by him. He's all personality.
He wasn't very happy when his uncle Patrick Vieira didn't play him very much, so that was a part of his discontent and eventually his departure. All right, Roberto, just a few more things, and let's do it in the kicking it around segment, shall we?
All right.
Perhaps coincidental, but maybe not. U.S. men's national team, they're still searching for their coach. Patrick Vieira is apparently an obvious candidate. So, Jimmy, put up this screenshot. Now, Roberto, I always don't. I don't always know where these things come from. These odds-on favorites of the coaches. But here you go. Now the Men in Blazers retweeted this, so sometimes I'll say, well, but they also said, they have the little scratching their chin emoji, which I don't always know what that means. But there's Patrick Vieira, according to NOLA News, is the odds-on favorite to be named the next U.S. men's national team coach, followed by the guy who is coaching France today against the USA in the French U23s, Thierry Henry. How about that?
Yes. And, they came out ahead 3-0. Interesting that they have Mauricio Pochettino at 10,000 to 1, 12,000 for De La Fuente. I don't know if De La Fuente speaks English, which might be an issue. Rafa Benitez at 6,000.
That's not 10,000 to 1. There's a different way. I really don't understand the gambling side of things too well. But
it's true.
That's not 10,000 to 1. It's plus 10,000, which somehow, if you bet $1 on that, I think you get.
That would be 10,000 to 1. By the way.
Yeah. Huh?
That would be 10,000 to 1.
Okay.
If you're betting $1 and you get 10,000, that's 10,000.
I didn't say you get 10,000. I think you get like 100. So anyway. Renard is the former Saudi Arabia coach that defeated Argentina in the opening game at Qatar, and then made the smooth transition to the French women's national team job. So he's there. Cherundolo, we've heard a lot about him. We know he's been spoken to because of a press conference he had where the way he answered the question was like, yeah, all right, we know they've talked to you. Wilfred Nancy, he's come right out and said, listen, man, I would love the again, you don't have to read too deeply between the lines. Yeah. You would love the opportunity, and it goes from there. So
if you, in your heart of hearts, you see that list, and if everybody would have raised their hand and said, I want to do this, who are you picking?
Well, is my choice because I would have better access to the head coach?
No, your choice is because this is the coach that's going to make this team the best team possible. Wilfred within its limitations.
Wilfred Nancy, and then it would be Patrick and Thierry Henry close behind. And here's why this is why I'm going to say. Well, first of all, I think Wilfred Nancy is just a great manager of men who I know he hasn't coached internationally, but he's got. But he has. He's a Frenchman, so he understands the ways of the soccer world. He knows how to manipulate. He knows how to speak to individuals. He knows how to speak to groups. And it's about putting this team together, maybe not trying to transform them as much tactically as it is the belief system. And I think he would be someone who would be able to do that. When I look at Patrick and Henry, Henry has sat next to Roberto Martinez for Belgium in Qatar. He was an assistant coach on the full team. Now he's the U23 coach for France. So now he's had some of this international experience. He's had very limited success on the club level. So it's Patrick Vieira had great success with New York City FC. Some people would argue that maybe that New York City didn't advance to the levels maybe they could have under Patrick. We could talk
about much of a chance.
Well,
before he left.
So he changed the culture here. There's little question of that with New York City. But his next stops, Nice, Crystal Palace,
Strasbourg
and Strasbourg, they really, those teams did not elevate to the level that you might have expected under Patrick's leadership. So now you question it. But he's got international playing experience. He understands the international level. Henry has played and now coached a bit on the international level. I would have no problem with any of those three being the next coach. The rest of them, I don't know. Pochettino's great, but I don't know.
So my three, for what it's worth, Pochettino would definitely be number one. I really like Wilfred Nancy, so I would definitely, for all the reasons that you mentioned, so I would definitely have him as number two. And as far as number three is concerned, I'm having a little bit. I mean, you can make arguments for a lot of the guys for different reasons. Cherundolo has had fantastic success, and he knows the U.S. national team program, having been in it for as long as he was. His success over in Hanover, not only as a player but going back and being there and helping out. what he's done with LAFC. You could see that. So I have no problem with Cherundolo. I wouldn't mind somebody with the international experience of Rafa Benitez. De La Fuente just won the Euros with Spain. I mean, how do you say no to that if you have that opportunity?
You have to talk to the guy. And the thing I left out about Vieira,
Yes.
the thing I left out about Vieira and Henry the point I wanted to make too is that they've been here and they understand the stakes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain level of importance there too, you know?
Right. And you have Henry and you have obviously Patrick Vieira, who, you know, is just so bright. And I think that he would be a very good coach as well. So my first two are that. Then it becomes a little bit more of a toss up. But I'd be happy with any of those guys. The guy who I don't want to see is Gareth Southgate. Despite the fact that he's made 2 Euro finals, I don't think that he's the type of guy who is going to get the best out of the U.S. player and have them, you know, getting better offensively. I mean, I just don't see it. So yeah, I know that Matt Cracker and Southgate have a relationship that goes way back. Crocker, rather.
Yeah.
Have a relationship, but yeah, let them go have drinks.
That's right. Well, you know, yeah, right. Well, somebody we know quite well thinks that it wouldn't be shocking if Gareth Southgate was the next.
No, let him go have a pint. There's a lot of great British bars.
So I want to. Do you know what I'm going to show you? So some people might just be listening to this. I'm sorry, but I'm showing Roberto something, and I'm trying to. I have to go way back in order for it to even fit. Do you know what this is?
The team staff of the U.S. Women's Olympic Soccer. Holy crap.
So I get to, you know, we get these media guides sent to us electronically, you know, you download it. So I was just scrolling through and I'm looking, and folks, it's I didn't put a count on it, but chiropractor, transition integration consultant, chef, social media managers, plural, team photographer, content videographers, there's multiple there, producer, content manager, press officer, assistant equipment manager, head of equipment, massage therapist, four massage therapists, mental health provider, just one. I'd go with more mental health providers.
Four of those and one massage therapist. Yes, go ahead.
Lead team physician, athletic trainer, physical therapist, assistant athletic trainer, head athletic trainer, assistant team administrator, player pathway scout, opposition analyst, technical videographer, assistant performance analysis, performance analyst, performance coach, sports scientist, head of performance, director of sporting analytics, set play coach, goalkeeper coach, assistant coach, and Emma Hayes.
No drone operator, I see.
No, well, that would be under opposition analysis. So that would be Cameron Megan. Is it Megan Cameron?
Oh, Megan Cameron. Oh,
no, it's not. No, that's not her.
No,
this woman is from England. So Emma probably brought her along.
I thought it was all right.
Just leave your drone at home. If by chance you're watching us live and you didn't see the beginning of our broadcast, then go back and this will be replayed, and go back and listen to our interview with the Har Journalist.
It's on demand.
Har Johal, who covers the Canadian women's national team. And this story about the drone and spying on New Zealand it's fascinating. It's pretty disturbing, and it's kind of
the Olympic champions spying on New Zealand. Just let that sit in. The Olympic gold medal winners from the last Olympics spying on New Zealand.
And the nickname that's come out of it, the head coach is Bev Priestman. So, and Bill Belichick has been caught in these things before. So they're calling her, one of the things you're seeing on social media, Bevacek. So whether that'll stick, I'm not sure. She so far has removed herself from the first game tomorrow against New Zealand, and there have been no further sanctions on her. 2 assistants who are responsible for this drone spying were detained in handcuffs and then eventually released, and it seems allowed to go home. Although the top assistant, Joseph Lombardi, apparently not the top assistant, the assistant who I think was operating the drone, was What did Har say? He's got several
It's
sanctions.
a suspended, 8-month suspended sentence.
Okay,
Jail sentence.
So she thinks
basically,
they're gonna let him go home and say
your
never
butt
come back.
home, we're not going to jail you.
Yep, I guess he won't be visiting Paris on vacation.
At least not for the next 8 months.
Yeah. All right, Roberto. I think that. Oh no, there's one other thing. Did you I hope you saw this, and if you didn't, then I'm glad you didn't, because you're going to see something. And you talk about laughing and just going like, "Are you effing kidding me?" All right.
Let's go.
Venezuelan League. There was a goal scored, and then there was an offside check by the video assistant referee. And right now, Jimmy's going to put up the line that they drew in order to say that the goal was still good. Now, I thought that you might have already seen this, because everybody in my circles, because this has been going. I mean, if you look on the internet for this, it'll have 6 billion.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you should go and look at the. I haven't shown the video, but we got a screenshot of the moment. So it's a diagonal line, and the ruling, goal good. I can't even. How can that be? Is that unbelievable?
Yeah.
All right. So for those who are just listening, it's a diagonal line from the bottom of the screen to the top. Diagonal to the
Which
left.
it shouldn't be.
No, it should be straight across. And it's not. Now, one other VAR piece of news before we go. Now, how about this one? So, Jimmy, put up the tweet from the guy about the fish cakes being thrown onto the field. Or maybe you don't have that one? Okay. Maybe I didn't in my nope, doesn't have that one. Anyway, so this one, do I have it anywhere where I can at least relay the story to you? Hold on, Roberto. I don't think I'm going to be able to find
Fish cakes?
Anyway, there was a I don't remember the teams, I don't remember the country, but there were fish cakes thrown onto the field by the home supporters because they disagreed with a VAR decision. And just fish cakes. Now, I don't eat fish cake. I didn't really know what a fish cake. I mean, I've heard of them, but I didn't really know what it was. And so shame on me, because I also had a picture of a fish cake to show you too. They're pretty ugly. They're fried, and oh my God, they're awful. We have the fish cakes.
All right.
There
Thank you, Jimmy. Good job.
Well done, Jimmy.
But by the way, the Ranger fans used to chant that to the Islander fans when they had that ugly uniform with the logo of the fisherman in front. And so the Ranger fan used to call them fish cakes, and to the Islanders.
Okay. Well, the fish cakes. So have your fish cakes ready. And the how about MLS preparing to fine teams $25,000 if they say anything about MLS Cup? I mean about Leagues Cup. Excuse me, Leagues Cup.
That's terrible. I mean, that's really, really terrible. Stop it. If people want to complain, let them complain. And if they have a legitimate complaint, then, listen. But
you remember when
all this, everything has to be kumbaya doesn't exactly work. So no, I'm not happy with that. I happen to like Leagues Cup. I may not be in a majority. I don't really know.
No, I like when,
but I happen to like it.
I like when MLS teams play Liga MX teams. I don't. When
Yes.
MLS teams play MLS teams, I think it's ridiculous. But I understand, that has to happen because of the unbalanced schedule. But
absolutely,
yeah, I understand that. But I don't. Those games don't interest me. Not in the least. So
No.
Querétaro, the first game, very intrigued by. Going to Cincinnati. Not
as much. Yeah, same thing. So it actually starts Friday. So there's a whole slew of games on Friday, whole slew of games on Saturday, and then the least amount of games is actually on Sunday. So that'll be the first round. Yankee Stadium, 8 p.m. on Sunday night. We'll be on the radio at 7:45. So Glenn in English, myself and Ariel in Spanish. So That should be good. Actually, you're not going to be there this Sunday, are you? It's going to be Joe. Is it Joe Tallison?
Joe Tallison filling in for me. So
yes,
able company on the broadcast, which will also be heard on Sirius XMFC channel 157. They're carrying a lot of Leagues Cup games, and
good.
Probably because of the few games that are in existence on Sunday. Fortunately for New York City, and they're able to be on the national airwaves there as well as the New York City FC network, as we are each and every game. There was one other thing I wanted to say, and we
have the MLS All-Star game tonight, by the way. Liga MX against MLS for the third time. MLS has won the first two, and Liga MX won the Skills Challenge last night, and that was fun to watch. I'm surprised that it's not full. I don't know why they don't promote that better to get better crowds for that event, because the event itself is really fun. I really like it. The players really seem to enjoy that. Yeah, it's fun for them. Right. Yeah, and I like that. It doesn't, it's not something that's like put on and they're like, oh, really, I got to do this. They really seem to enjoy it. There's a lot of camaraderie, and I find it to be fun. I think it's a great thing that they do. And MLS can't find me, by the way. So just want you to know, MLS cannot find me. So
here, how about it reminded me of that time. Do you remember this? And it was I think it was like the early days of the Athletic covering soccer, and they were breaking MLS stories like daily. And the commissioner, and then it was funny because somebody was leaking these stories, right? Or these guys have sources. They work their butts off to maintain sources. But the feeling in the MLS offices is that these stories were getting leaked by somebody in the MLS offices. So a memo that was sent out to the employees of MLS was leaked to the Athletic, which they printed, and it was like $1,000 fine and possible termination if you were caught leaking information. So the leak, that was the best part of that story, is that a memo sent to the employees was leaked to the Athletic. So there you go.
So the All-Star game tonight, I was trying to find the tweet as far as where it's broadcast. It's going to be on MLS Season Pass, and I think it's free for tonight. So even if you don't have a subscription to MLS Season Pass, as long as you have the Apple TV app, you'll be able to watch the game. All you have to do is sign in. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to do a credit card, nothing. Just sign in, and then you'll be able to find the game and do that. I'm just looking over here if MLS has tweeted anything out on it, but I don't know if it's any. Let me see where else it's being played. If it's being no, it just says watch for free on Apple TV, so it's not on To The N. We know that a lot of the games were going to be on To The N for Leagues Cup, but this is only on Apple TV tonight. So, but it's free, so you can watch.
All right.
And it works. So, like if you have a Roku, you can download the Apple TV app, and it works. So, that sort of thing.
Awesome. All right, man. We are going to go on a bit of a hiatus, not long, kind of a Leagues Cup hiatus, and then be back with you. But every now and then we need a break, so we're going to take it during Leagues Cup and then get back at it. Maybe through the knockout stages of Leagues Cup, and then if New York City's fortunate enough to advance, or do they want to advance? I don't know. You never know.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Look, I know that they may wind up putting some players that haven't gotten much of a chance to play because it's a good opportunity to do that, but it's the quickest path to a trophy that you can have. And the team has been on record saying, if there's a trophy to be had, we want it.
Yeah.
So, they may not put out their best lineup for the first couple of games. Maybe we'll see, depending what goes on. But as it gets, if they advance, and then they're in the knockout stage, all bets are off for who's going to wind up playing and what they're going to do.
Yeah, so, No, you're right. I don't mean that they're rooting against themselves not to advance, and you coach and you compete in every game to win. I'm just saying, in their current physical state, sometimes it's better to have a rest, even though it's extended. I guess you're off for like almost 3 weeks if you don't. Which
advance. Is too much, right?
Yeah. August 5th is the second game, and then August 24th is the next. So that's 19 days they'd be off.
Right, if they wound up being eliminated after the after the group stage. So they also have 8 days off between their first game and their second game.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So they're going to get some. They're going to get some rest.
All right, man. Good stuff, Roberto. Roberto Abramowitz. He's got the Spanish commentary. I'm Glenn Crooks, English commentary, New York City FC Network. Listen in. We're doing this every week, although we're going to take a couple of weeks off, just a couple of weeks. And also remember our pregame live 45 minutes before kickoff on the English side, and an hour and I always have trouble calculating yours. An hour and a half before kickoff.
Yes, 90 minutes before. It's a 90-minute game. 90 minutes before. It's simple.
There's some
symmetry there.
Synthesis there. I like that. That's beautiful.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Roberto. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon. See you.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.